At the age of 88, Dyan Cannon just revealed the truth, shocking the entertainment industry. The well-known actress casually mentioned that she goes on a lot of dates each week and has many friends with benefits. The most startling aspect isn't even that. In 2025, she was found lying to the Secret Service about her age. She listed 1950 on her passport rather than 1937 because she wanted to feel younger. After they learned, they questioned her for 45 minutes. People are now curious about what else she has been hiding for so long. January 4th, 1937 was a significant day for Dyan Cannon. Samuel Dyan Fazen was her true name. She was raised in a modest home with several significant differences. Her mother, Claire Portoy, was a Jewish immigrant from Ukraine who fled horrific atrocities. Her father was Ben Finn. He sold life insurance and was a Canadian Mennonite. Despite their limited resources, they gave it their all. Her mother lost a grandmother during the Russian Revolution. John will always remember that awful moment. For a long period, the family endured such suffering. Because she was Jewish and had darker skin, Dyan experienced severe bullying at school as a child. She was called names and her appearance was ridiculed. But even as a young child, she had a spark. By the age of 5, she was already performing in local productions. Her dad struggled to make ends meet, and her mother dressed her. Dyan's tendency to stammer made school difficult for her, particularly when she had to speak in front of the class. However, she would practice by herself in her bedroom and fantasize about escaping to Hollywood. When she was just 13, an odd incident happened to her. In 1950, she took home the title of Miss West Seattle. It included a crown of imitation rhinestones and a little monetary prize. But to her, it was everything. Despite some people whispering behind her back that she appeared too ethnic, she stood tall and proud. She quickly secured her first modeling gigs, including one for Sears catalogs in 1951. She earned $5 an hour, which she used to pay for dance classes. She spent hours each day practicing her tap dance. However, the remarks continued even after that. On her reward sash, other children scrawled derogatory things. It was cruel. Still, she continued, because her olive skin and black curly hair didn't fit the popular blonde image, she was frequently rejected. However, that strengthened her. She became the star of the acting club at West Seattle High School as soon as she went there in 1951. The school newspaper praised her for her role as Emily Webb in Our Town in 1953. Since she was 4 years old, she had been concealing the fact that she still stutters. She was drafting a report in 1952 when she suddenly stopped. Her pals chuckled. After crying that night, she vowed never to let it happen again. She started paying $2 a week for singing lessons. Every night, she spent hours practicing breathing exercises and tongue twisters. She was even running plays by her junior year. Her locker began to display derogatory pictures at the same moment. Still, she continued, she improved as an actress and took home 3 consecutive Best Performer honors. She received her degree in 1955 with a 3.0 GPA. 2. She received good grades in the arts, indicating that she was destined for something greater. In 1957, the year she turned 20, she traveled to Los Angeles. She only had $100 on her, so she slept on her cousin's couch. A director advised her she needed a new name for Hollywood, so she changed it to Dyan Cannon. Being a dress model for a big box retailer pays $75 per week. She continued to try out for parts, but she was rejected thousands of times since she didn't look like a typical Hollywood blonde. She occasionally only had enough money for 1 meal per day, and the 4 of them shared a tiny room. But after just 1 semester, she left UCLA to pursue acting full-time. She paid $10 a week to learn from Sanford Meisner. At this point, a pub owner named Sonani Orling proposed to her. However, she halted it after realizing it was incorrect. At one audition, she fled because it seemed eerie. Despite the challenges of life, she never gave up. In the same year, she began performing in bars. She earned $50 a night playing jazz at a little pub called The Losers. She performed some of her own tunes as well as Ella Fitzgerald's. Not everyone was kind, but her voice was heard. Some agents told her she looked too foreign for starring roles, and others in the audience made nasty remarks. She refused to portray stereotypical characters or villains. She was offered that type of work 20 times, but she declined each time. There were instances when she didn't even eat enough. She earned $200 a month as a part-time model, barely enough to live on, but the suffering strengthened her. She eventually landed a few modest TV roles in 1959, such as in a Bat Masterson episode. People were taking notice of her. She was no longer just getting by. She got her first role in a motion picture in 1958. but she was not given credit. She was happy to have the opportunity to play a waitress in a Have Gun Will Travel episode, even if she only had 2 lines. Even though she was only 21, she had put in a lot of effort to reach that place. She had a few additional guest roles that same year. She portrayed Nicole McCready in Wanted Dead or Alive and Mary Lowry in another Bat Masterson episode. She wasn't simply a gorgeous face, as these portions demonstrated. However, she repeatedly had to decline requests to strip off or portray filthy roles. That was not how she wanted to be perceived. She desired to be regarded with respect. In 1960, Dyan starred in his debut feature film, The Rise and Fall of Legs Diamond. She portrayed a gangster's girlfriend, Dixie. Even though she was only 23, the film brought in over $1 million, but it was a seductive and frightening aspect. Additionally, despite her popularity, directors chose to cast her in specific roles. She was asked to portray the same roles over and over again. No, she said. She once spent a whole week living on the beds of friends while making do with just $10 each day. One co-star even made an inappropriate motion while filming. She promised to resign. Even though she appeared on other shows like Tombstone Territory and Hawaiian Eye, she was not given the attention or compensation she deserved. Between 1960 and 1962, she rejected over 20 parts that would have paid her $5,000 apiece. Instead, she chose to appear in television series like Ripcord and Bat Masterson. She nearly wounded herself performing a stunt in a helicopter while filming Ripcord in 1961. She repeatedly refused to be taken advantage of by certain directors. One invited her to a hotel room for an interview. She learned acting whenever she could, ate ramen noodles, and begged her family for money. In 1962, she joined with Warner Brothers, which seemed like a dream come true. However, she only earned $300 a week, whereas male gamers earned much more, and she had to play background characters who grinned and said things like, "Hello, handsome." She decided to take a hiatus in 1964. She learned how to be an actress in New York from Sanford Meisner. She sobbed through the exercises in her 5-hour courses. She discovered new dimension in her performances. She declined a $10,000 role in a risque film that same year. She didn't want to be a certain person all the time. She worked as a waitress to make ends meet. She once offered coffee to a director who had rejected her, but the encounter strengthened her resolve. She toured with the Broadway production of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying that same year. As Rosemary, she performed in over 100 shows in 20 locations. Although her timing and charisma were appreciated by many, things weren't always pleasant behind the scenes. A few of her co-stars made disparaging remarks about her. Even worse, someone ruined her outfit during a performance, causing a humiliating wardrobe malfunction in front of a large audience. Still, she continued, her weekly income was $400, the highest amount she had ever earned. Hollywood calls resumed by the end of 1964. Her efforts came to a stop at this point. In 1969, things changed. Dyan Cannon starred in 2 of those films. She portrayed Alice, a character who had a unique perspective on relationships and love that had never been shown on television or in a motion picture. It was poignant, humorous, and dangerous. At the box office, the film made $30 million, a huge success. At the age of 32, Dyan was nominated for an Oscar and a Golden Globe. At last, she had completed the task. Nevertheless, the section's themes of group therapy and infidelity were very similar to her own issues. In the same year, she broke up with Cary Grant. Although it was difficult, her behavior altered how others perceived her. In 1971, she portrayed the main character in The Love Machine. She portrayed model Judith Austin, who cheated while navigating the negative aspects of Hollywood. There was a lot of profanity and adult content in the film. Dyan didn't hesitate to reveal the true nature of celebrity. It earned almost $10 million. In the same year, she starred in the film Such Good Friends as a wife who discovers her husband has numerous extramarital affairs. The section was thick and rough. She pushed herself to the limit on set and used method acting for her role. Although the film created a lot of buzz, critics praised her. She was nominated for another Golden Globe in 1972. She traveled the world in 1971 to film spooky scenes for The Burglars in Greece, alongside Jean-Paul Belmondo and Omar Sharif. She performed many of the routines herself, including rolling down a rough mountainside in one sequence. After one injury, she spent a brief period in the hospital. She demonstrated her ability to act and appear dramatic in the $15 million film. Since she was a timid, fearful, and ambitious girl in Tacoma, she had made great strides. Dyan Cannon's ascent was not a quiet one in the 1970s. In the 1978 film Heaven Can Wait, she portrayed Julia Farnsworth. Farnsworth is a chilly lady who, in a foolish scheme, kills her husband for money. For that role, she received an Oscar nomination, and she became the buzz of Hollywood. Despite only spending $6 million, the film grossed nearly $99 million, making it an unexpected smash. It received 9 Oscar nominations, including 1 for Best Picture. It didn't matter that some reviewers thought Dyan's performance was excessive. Nevertheless, she received a Golden Globe and a Saturn Award. She didn't even think it would win an Oscar. Her performances in Ted and Alice and Bob and Carol already distinguished her in 1969. Few performers could blend comedy and treachery as well as she did in those parts. She was not only succeeding in Hollywood by the late 1970s, but she was also influencing the industry. Nobody anticipated that she would receive Oscar nominations for both producing and starring. 2 years prior, in 1976, she had taken the industry by surprise with a short film titled Number One. In it, she did more than just play the lead. She produced, cut, directed, authored the screenplay, and even composed the music. Growing up, learning about your body and how others respond to it was a very intimate experience. Many people were upset. Although the scenarios were based on her own childhood experiences, they were genuine and occasionally made her feel horrible. She was brave, according to those who didn't like her. It was deemed overly straightforward by some. However, she made her point, and history was written. That same year, Dyan was creating her own storylines and getting Hollywood to pay attention, while the majority of actresses were waiting for scripts. She was in actual suffering behind her tough exterior on TV. Her first film as a director, The End of Innocence, released in 1990, finally told a portion of that story. Since the 1970s, when her life was in disarray, she had not given that film any thought. Following her 1968 divorce from Cary Grant, her mental health deteriorated. The film focused on a woman struggling with her addiction, relationships, and drive for perfection. The opening sequence was unusual and unforgettable because it was a point-of-view shot from inside the womb. A candid description of breakdowns, therapy, and the necessity of finding one's own value followed. She cast Rebecca Schaeffer as a younger version of herself and placed herself in the lead role. Schaeffer tragically passed away shortly after the release of the film. This was Dyan's most intimate composition to date. It featured symbols such as a dream horse and an ice cream binge. Some felt it was too much, while others admired her for putting her own narrative on the big screen. She had previously starred with Burt Reynolds in Shamus in 1973. The film included a mystery plot, violence, and sex. The set became tense. Reynolds, who was renowned for being grumpy, was at the height of his fame. Rumor had it that the two celebrities had a falling out and possibly even slept together. In one scene, Dyan had a seductive moment on a pool table that made it difficult to distinguish between her real life and her play. Reynolds has a reputation for being cruel. He would even cover an actor's face with rubbish to make a scenario appear authentic. Despite the film's lackluster box office performance, critics praised Dyan's sensuality and wit. The tension behind the scenes, however, was what most people remembered, demonstrating how hazardous those sets could have been in those days. She co-starred with Peter Sellers in the slapstick comedy Revenge of the Pink Panther in 1978, playing the seductive and entertaining role of Simone Larie. However, filming was challenging. In 1964, Sellers had already experienced 2 heart attacks and had serious mental health issues. He focused more on the words of a psychic than the director's, and there was no The Color Purple on set. His condition deteriorated throughout the filming of the 1977 film. The mayhem during the shoot will always be remembered, but his passing later that year was tragic. Everyone in the group saw the risk, even if Dyan was brilliant in situations like the bizarre costume shop encounter she had with Harvey Korman. They were afraid that Sellers would stop at nothing, and this film was among his final works before he passed away at the age of 54. When Dyan portrayed the tough character Kate Blackwell in the television series Master of the Game in 1984, she made the transition to television. The narrative focused on a woman who established a diamond kingdom in South Africa during the 1890s. Her character endured betrayals, a father's suicide, and even ordered the murder of someone in order to protect family secrets. Many terrible tale twists, including incest, hidden twins, and startling murders, were featured in the 9-hour event. One scene showed a man in a gem mine being shocked. One depicted individuals in the 1920s being sterilized against their choice. That was something Dyan had never done before. Every show attracted over 20 million viewers. She demonstrated that she could dominate TV just as well as film, and received a Golden Globe nomination. She contributed her keen sense of humor to Ally McBeal as the 1990s progressed, portraying the insane Judge Whipper Khan. One episode featured a lady suing her ex for stealing her orgasmic experience. In another, Cannon demonstrated that a man was lying about being distressed by tearing off his toupee in court. The figure was fearless, humorous, and completely unfiltered. The contrast with her dramatic portions was adored by the fans. When people witnessed the courtroom scenes, they were reminded of Dyan's confidence in real life. In 1968, she broke up with Cary Grant, who was 33 years her senior, and has had to cope with public criticism ever since. In this section, she was able to make people laugh by drawing on that past. In 1997, she starred in the television film Beverly Hills Family Robinson. The classic tale of a family marooned on an island was retold. Dyan portrayed the lovely mother who had to get used to living with furniture made of caviar tin and clothing made of palm fronds. There were some very frightening scenes in the film, such as when they discovered human remains in a cave and believed the locals may be cannibals. Additionally, based on actual occurrences, there was a scene in which she took the poison from a snake bite. Even though it was a family film, there were a few situations that were barely PG. In Diagnosis Murder, a thriller about a woman embroiled in both crime and love, she portrayed the enigmatic Iris Mason that same year. In one episode, after surviving a poisoning at an event, she discovered that the poisoning was a component of a $10 million insurance scam. In another, she seemed to be unable to recall details following a car accident linked to mob activity. These episodes included elements of humor and sadness, yet they were similar to her previous thrillers. The show was nominated for a 1998 People's Choice Award and attracted over 12 million viewers. Just equally courageous work was done behind the scenes by Dyan. She put a lot of effort on directing the 1990 film The End of Innocence. She witnessed too much in the 1960s while working in actual psychiatric facilities. She even went undercover to visit 12 more people and document abuse and neglect in the 1980s. The film used a few of the scenes. The graphic depictions of electroshock, for instance, were inspired by actual incidents that occurred in California. Despite studios' attempts to stop her, she managed to get a $5 million fund. The film generated a great deal of discussion and even sparked actual investigations. Her honesty changed people's perspectives, but many didn't like it. In 1998, she starred in the scandal-plagued sensual period thriller A Kiss at Twilight. Based on actual events from the 1800s, she included scenes of a dramatic duel, a kiss laced with poison, and a love driven by opium. The film was viewed by almost 4 million people on Lifetime, yet over 1,000 people voiced their displeasure. Dyan went on to say that she infused the narrative with some of her own love recollections, including secrets from her romance with Cary Grant. In 2000, she adapted an ancient book into the family film Caddy Woodlawn. Behind the scenes, however, chaos reigned. The show was nearly destroyed by budget cuts, excessive hours, and breaching the law by exploiting child labor. She inserted violent historical scenes that weren't in the original plot and edited it herself. Over 3 million people watched the film when it eventually aired on Disney Channel. However, her strictness with the workers gained notoriety. As a guest on HBO's Arlie Tullins, she worked on stories based on actual events in the entertainment and sports industries. Similar to actual kickback scams from the 1990s, her character bribed a producer with $500,000 in one episode. She included her own remarks regarding her early career pay disparity, stating that she used to earn 60% less than her male co-stars. These moments caused a great deal of controversy, but they also revealed information that Hollywood wished to conceal. In the independent film Hope's Legacy from 2017, Dyan Cannon portrayed a horse trainer named Linda. She had a quiet yet powerful personality. It initially appeared to be just another lovely film about second chances. The story's depiction of what was happening behind the scenes was far more distressing. When the film was released, the equine industry was still in shock over actual abuse cases. Particularly problematic were the 2015 Tennessee walking horse investigations, where USDA discovered more than 700 infractions. Federal raids occurred because some instructors were inflicting pain using unlawful means, such as flying. In Hope's Legacy, Dyan's character discovers something really unsettling. A covert betting ring is profiting from the suffering of horses that are consuming contaminated feed. The actual case of Jackie McConnell, A horse trainer convicted after covert footage revealed him abusing horses sounded a lot like this. Despite being 80 years old, Dyan gave this part her all because she was an animal lover. She even claimed that it caused her to consider the lack of justice for those who are unable to express themselves. The most startling development was when she discovered that a family member was complicit in the scheme. A courtroom scene that left viewers stunned marked the show's conclusion. Although the film didn't do well financially, she valued the fact that it brought attention to animal abuse more than the quantity of tickets sold. She unexpectedly returned to drawing in 2019. A dramatic diva involved in a well-known dispute with Marge Simpson, Dyan voiced a crazy version of herself in the April 28th episode of The Simpsons called Dio Canada. It was supposed to be ridiculous and extravagant. It was more painful, though, because it was based on her actual life. The accusations of vote rigging at the time may have been referenced in one scene when she begged for a golden toilet, and another where she was upset about not receiving an Oscar nomination for Heaven Can Wait in 1974. One of her lines caused fans to gasp and laugh. "I've outlasted 3 husbands and 4 facelifts." Dyan was mocking her Hollywood troubles with this statement. It was successful. More than 8 million people watched the program, which was her first animated feature in a long time. She later claimed that she felt liberated when she made fun of the strange times she had experienced. In 2005, Dyan portrayed a widow named Lois in the film Boone Beach Club. Although the film didn't get much traction until much later. It debuted in 2005 and was eventually released on August 4, 2006. The film was given fresh life from the start of the 2010s till the Palm Beach International Film Festival in 2012. People were astonished by how unvarnished it was. While dating an elderly person, one of Dyan's characters discovered that her partner had 3 children from a 20-year affair, creating a covert second family. Anecdotes from a bereavement support group served as the basis for the plot. The most talked about scene was when Dyan was naked in the hot tub. She didn't apologize and was 68 years old at the time. In a 2014 interview, she claimed that the released version was made even more terrifying by removing a violent sequence of treason involving forged documents and a will. Despite having a limited premiere, the film made $1 million views, and sparked fresh discussions about ageism and the abilities of older viewers. In 2021, Dyan displayed courage once more, as she appeared as a guest star in episode 14 of season 3 of The Rookie. Her character, Ruth, was an elderly performer who was concealing a scandal involving old sultry photos from her 1970s film career. The narrative touched on issues that many celebrities still face today, and she was being made to do something. Unexpectedly, her former boss threatened her, fabricating evidence of an affair from 1982 in order to demand $2 million. This was similar to the 2014 Hollywood scandal involving the genuine star leaks. Even at 84, Dyan continued to perform fast-paced racing scenes. Many people were deeply affected by a frightening statement she made about being discarded like yesterday's script. Just 12% of film roles were filled by women over 60 in 2020. She wasn't merely an actor. She exposed a system that frequently disregards elderly women. In 2024, she co-founded a podcast with Christina Vanti Pfizer, Kim Douglas Robertson, and Tracy Bregman. God's Table Hollywood was the name of it. Beginning on June 26th, the program startled viewers by revealing genuine behind-the-scenes revelations. She discussed a terrifying incident that occurred in Ninette while filming Heaven Can Wait in an episode from July 2024. $100,000. Prop nearly killed someone when it shattered. She also recalled how, when filming Revenge of the Pink Panther, Peter Sellers nearly passed away from a heart attack during a sequence. "I believe God saved him," she added. By September 2025, it had been downloaded more than 50,000 times. She described being denied a 2025 White House tour because the birth year on her passport didn't match. She was apprehended by the Secret Service for writing 1950 rather than 1937. When the show combined scandal and faith, it became much more than anyone had anticipated. She still astonished people at the age of 88, but this time she did it cleverly. Her 1965 marriage to Cary Grant initially appeared to be a dream come true. She was 28 and he was 61. But it soon grew dark. With the assistance of Dr. Mortimer Hartman, Cary had already begun experimenting with LSD. He wanted Dyan to do the same because he believed it helped people cope with pain. Her first vacation was really frightening before they were married. Caves, screaming, and crazy thoughts. She repeatedly did it in an attempt to maintain their connection. By 1967, it was negatively affecting her mental health. She began turning to narcotics and marijuana as coping mechanisms, and she was briefly imprisoned. They achieved a final divorce in 1968. On February 26, 1966, their daughter Jennifer was born. Jennifer was placed under her care. Dyan described how domineering Carrie had become throughout the custody dispute, claiming that he kept an eye on her diet, prevented her from meeting her friends, and even locked her in the toilet when he became upset. He was instructed to provide her with $50,000 annually. In her 2011 memoirs, she described it as a slow death by 1,000 cuts. She attempted to find solace in a second marriage to real estate trader Stanley Finberg after everything. Although they were married on April 22, 1985, their union was short-lived. They were battling in court over millions of dollars by 1991. She had sacrificed too much for the marriage, so Dyan claimed he was keeping money and requested $100,000 per month to support her. The split on March 20, 1991, made headlines despite the court documents being kept confidential. At the time, she was 54 years old. Rather than keeping her anguish to herself, she channeled it into her acting career, obtaining roles like the one in Ally McBeal a few years later. However, failed marriages weren't the only source of the suffering. In 1976, a fan broke into her Beverly Hills house after following her around in the 1970s. He left messages with threats and destroyed the place. She paid over $20,000 annually for protection and had to relocate 3 times a year. After being apprehended in 1977, he served time in prison. However, the negative experience stayed with her. She even claimed to have kept a gun under her pillow as she slept for months. Hollywood later fought for privacy rights because of this occurrence, which took place many years before stalking laws were created. Despite being in her late 80s, she is still going strong. She claimed to have many friends with perks in a 2025 interview with People. She enjoys going on dates, traveling, and having fun without a husband. She joked that she has a lot of significant individuals in her life at the April 7, 2025 Hollywood Beauty Awards. Her liaisons with celebrities like Johnny Carson, which featured private planes and Las Vegas weekends, sprang to mind. She claims that her perseverance is fueled by yoga and happiness. She appeared in the Cary Grant homage film Archie, released in 2023. According to one woman's pals, age is just a number. She spoke to KTLA. However, she had a lengthy history of heartbreak, which made her quite confident. She attempted suicide in 1997 because her life in the 1990s was so miserable. After her mother passed away and she was having problems at work, she started taking drugs. She received 12 sessions of electroshock treatment during her 3 days in the hospital, which affected her memory. After treatment, she admitted to Oprah in 1999 that she had misidentified people as Cary Grant. In 1998, she converted to Christianity and discovered serenity in prayer. Her group has assisted hundreds of women by 2005. She made headlines once more in 2025. This time, it was because her passport listed 1950 as her birth year, rather than 1937, which led to her being halted at the White House. She claimed to feel younger as a result. When the Secret Service discovered it during a scan, they interrogated her for 45 minutes. The story was read by many. She later made fun of it on Instagram, writing, "Vanity is my middle name." However, the joke was actually about a Hollywood fact. Women over 50 continue to receive 60% fewer parts than men. She is also the subject of stories. In 1978, the news reported that she was dating Warren Beatty while filming Heaven Can Wait. After they taped 47 private scenes, the media went bananas. There were many tales of late-night visits, pricey presents, and even a necklace made of diamonds. Dyan consistently denied it, claiming that they were merely lusting and never actually met. Nevertheless, she lost $200,000 in advertising and caused controversy. However, the incident contributed to the film's $98 million box office receipts. In her memoirs, she then ridiculed Hollywood stories, claiming that half of them are real and the other half haven't yet occurred.